Ole Miss faces a massive must-win test in Oklahoma. There's going to be a rainy day. The weather is going to be all about it. Let's talk to Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal to find out what's on his mind.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year national media veteran with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. On today's show, we will talk about the weather. We will talk about Lane in Florida. Heck, we'll probably even talk about the World Series a little bit. But this is a big weekend for the Ole Miss Rebels, and we're going to bring in the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal's Michael Katz to tell us all about it. And remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected, well, that's only the beginning. Stay tuned for later in the show for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. So, Michael, really interesting stuff. There's nothing going on around Oxford right now, right?
Yeah, completely quiet, as always.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. So you're heading out to Norman, Oklahoma today as people are watching this, and you're going to be dealing with the weather on the drive over there. But this game, because of everything, just feels massive. It almost feels bigger than the game against the Georgia Bulldogs last year. And Ole Miss is 6-1. They're okay. If they lose this game, they can still go 10-2 and make the college football playoff. But it just, for whatever reason, doesn't feel like it. Why am I feeling that, man?
I mean, if they get this one, I mean, again, I know anything can happen over the last few games, but if they get this one, it feels like it's all right there in front of them. And I know we've said that before. We said that last year after they beat Georgia, but a hypothetical 11-1 Ole Miss team, or even a 10-2 Ole Miss team that loses a late game but beats Oklahoma on the road, is probably feeling really, really good about its chances. I think that, you know, last week was just, it was so close, right? That was a game Ole Miss should have won, and they'll tell you that. Everyone, they've said it. That's probably why it hurts. That hurts so bad. You were up 9 in the fourth quarter, and you were a stop away from coming home with a signature win. But you know, the good thing about the SEC is it provides a lot of signature win opportunities, and this is another one. This is a good Oklahoma team. I think they're number 13 in the AP poll. They don't lose at home very often. They have like the best home winning percentage since 1999, I believe it is. It's going to be a test, but you know, if you're able to go to 7-1 and that's one of your wins, I think right now ESPN had them at like 48.5% to make the playoff. If you win that Oklahoma game, you are feeling very good about that percentage.
Yeah, it feels like probability-wise and percentage-wise, they probably wouldn't jump you up that far. But it feels like if Ole Miss beats Oklahoma, it's like at 85%.
I think everyone feels that.
Yeah, and it should be interesting with what's going on. The flip side of that is if Ole Miss loses to Oklahoma, it feels like they're going to lose another game on the schedule. There's a chance for 2022 to happen at that point.
Yeah, and Jaden Williams brought that up a couple of days ago. And he's one of the few guys that's still there from the 2022 team, but he remembers starting 7-0, and you know, they lose that game at LSU. Then I believe they beat A&M the next week, and then they came back and they lost the Bama game, and that was really the start of the slide. They lost their last 4. Started 7-0, ended up 8-5. Man, it's just I think if nothing else, like the good thing about the 12-team playoff is that like you're still in it after one loss now, right? Like back then, if you lost the game, there's a good chance you might be out of the hunt for the national championship. You still obviously make a nice bowl game. But now it's like you lose a game, there's still plenty to play for. There's not going to be a great undefeated team this year, most likely. You know, obviously Ohio State and A&M and Indiana. We'll see what happens there, but there's a good chance that one of the top seeds have a loss. So it does make you think if they lose 2 and then you come home and like you're not sure if there's you feel good about a playoff at 10-2 hypothetically, but Lane's talked about it. You don't want to leave it in a committee's hands. And that's what you're doing if you do that, and you're leaving it to the strength of schedule and the strength of record and all these things that they can't control at that point. And then of course there's the potential distractions of other things happening around Oxford. If they lose another game, does that get louder with things? And then it becomes does this turn into 2022? I think that this coaching staff has learned from that. I mean, again, you would like to think so, at least, that they know that they can't let this spiral that way. But we'll see. I think it is really interesting. And I agree with you that if they do lose this week, it does feel like there's another one in there somewhere.
Yeah, I don't think 10-2 is in the cards.
No,
this season.
It's 11-1 or 9-3. It feels like.
Yeah, and that honestly, the one that kind of like sticks the dagger in you if you lose to Oklahoma is probably the Mississippi State game, if we're going to be real about it. Yeah. Could you imagine being 9-2 going down to play a game in Starkville? Can you imagine how tense Ole Miss fans would be for that game?
Be crazy. Yeah. It would be absolutely insane.
Yeah. And it's going to be nuts. I do think Mississippi State has a chance to beat Texas tomorrow.
Oh, I do too. I know Texas, they've got their defense is nice, but that offense is pretty putrid at times. And State can put up points when they're not beating themselves. They're putting up points. They should have beaten Florida last week, but then there was the throw to the D tackle, and then Billy Napier got booed off the field, and then he got fired after winning a game. But that's got to be an ego. A hit to the ego. That's wild, but
yeah.
I mean that was a game State should have had. State's played some pretty good games this year. They are vastly improved from last year for sure.
Yeah, it should be pretty interesting. And I on the SEC squad show that we do with the other Locked On hosts, I was like, it's not a good look whenever you're getting taught offensive football from the Kentucky Wildcats. Whenever that happens, that's got to be a bruise on the old ego.
Hey, you know what though? I like that new quarterback. There's Cutter Boley. I think he could be a nice player. That's all I got. And the running back McGowan's good.
Listen, I get the fact that they went because they figured if they scored a touchdown, Texas was not going to. It was basically ball game at that point. But kick the field goal. You're playing against Texas. You're controlling what's going on. You're being over the last quarter and a half dominant in that game offensively. You're playing at home. That felt like the crap that got pulled last year by Ole Miss against Kentucky. That's what that felt like to me.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a callback, but not wrong.
Yeah.
Not wrong.
All right. Yeah. You got to learn how to play like the favorite. I understand Kentucky not doing it in that situation, but in that game, you've got to read the room. You're in control of that football game. The only way that you lose that game is by losing it yourself. And just like the Mississippi State game, they did.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned winning the game versus losing the game in terms of I'm going back to the Ole Miss Georgia game, and I think that's probably what makes it so frustrating is Ole Miss was in control of that game. They were playing the game on their terms for 3 quarters, and then they just weren't able to.
4th and 2, 4th and 2 that you had stopped.
Yeah.
And once that happened, it all flipped. And because if Ole Miss won that game, they're 3rd in the country right now.
Yeah.
A favorite to go to Atlanta.
Yep.
Probably a favorite against Oklahoma. It's amazing. One play is the difference between being a 5-point underdog and probably a 10-point favorite in the same football game.
Perception. It changes the perception of everything.
Yeah.
It really does.
It's absolutely nuts. All right. When we come back, we will continue to talk about the game versus Oklahoma in Norman. And a little bit later on, we're going to talk World Series a little bit as well. because I see a Dodger blanket right behind him. So
It's somewhere in the mess there.
Yeah. So as soon as we come back, we will talk to Michael all about that. But first, I do want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. It's all about those that believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the scoreboard. They move crowds, culture, keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is actually several moments, but it's the first 5 possessions in Trinidad Chambliss, leading 5 touchdown drives on those possessions in a game that Ole Miss led in the fourth quarter and should have won. It was Trinidad consistently being a problem that put Ole Miss in the position to win that game. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. So Mazda, move and be moved. Also, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs nothing, but helps keep all of this free. And also, Locked On is getting ready to change the game yet again, all in the name of having fun following your team. We will tell you how to do it. December 8th is the date to remember. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college and pro, is ready for you. All right, so Michael, one thing that's interesting about this game, we talked about how the weather's supposed to be a major factor in this game potentially, and you have a quarterback that for Oklahoma, they were worried about him holding on to the ball and all of that he could do in dry conditions. This feels like it could be almost a disaster game by the Oklahoma offense. They need the running back to kind of show out a little bit.
Yeah, I know Blaylock had a really nice game last week with 100-some against South Carolina. But for the most part, the running game has been pretty non-existent for large portions of the year. And obviously Mateer's hand, that's been a large portion of the conversation for the last month or so. And he has not looked great since he came back. I don't know if you can necessarily blame the hand on it all, but he's made some bad decisions. He's turned the ball over. 3 picks against Texas. I can't imagine it's comfortable to have him running the ball right now either. You probably don't want to be risking shots to that hand. And again, for a guy who I believe has 7 touchdowns and 6 picks this year, ball security has been a problem. He's great when he's right, but there's a little gunslinger in there, and then there's some ball security. So if they get forced into passing situations, I think Ole Miss probably feels pretty good that they're going to get a mistake in some way.
Yeah, and this could be the game, and honestly, it would make sense, especially with the top 2 right tackles for Oklahoma is very iffy in this game. This feels like lining Suntarine Perkins up and saying, just go get him at that point.
Yeah, 4 sacks against them last year? I know every team every year is different, but I think they sacked Jackson Arnold like 9 times last year. And I know
including like the last 7 plays.
Yeah, it was insane. And so I know different team, different year, all these different things, but you got to think he's got one of those games in him at some point. Like he's going to get let loose eventually. And this feels like a game where the pass rush is going to be really important, because I think like if you let Mateer just sit back there and pick you apart, it's not going to go great. But if you can get pressure in his face, potentially, force him into some bad decisions, maybe hand slips off the ball, I think you're feeling a lot better about things. This can't, and we talked about before the game, this doesn't feel like it could be a drop 8 kind of game.
Yeah, when you look at this Oklahoma team, this is actually a really good matchup for the Ole Miss Rebels. And the reason that I say that, the things that they do well the things that they don't do well matches up to the things that Ole Miss doesn't do well. For instance, they're like 119th in turnover margin this season. Ole Miss doesn't get explosive on the back end of the defense. Or the fact that they don't run the ball particularly well. Well, obviously, you saw last week against Georgia, Ole Miss struggled against the run game. I think this is a good matchup, and this is an Oklahoma team, everybody needs to remember, that hasn't scored 30 in a conference game in the SEC since they joined. And if Ole Miss can score 24, 30 points, there's a real chance that it could become a bridge too far. And like I said, I'm not completely bought in on the Oklahoma defense. Brent Venables is always good, and it's always a good defense. But when you look at who they've played, it's just like I told you off the air. It's kind of like a bingo card of bad SEC offenses minus Kentucky. So, yeah, I like this matchup for Ole Miss.
Yeah, their defense is really interesting because, again, statistically, it is among the best in pretty much everything. I think they lead the nation in sacks. I mean, tackles for loss, all of these different things. But, yeah, they haven't exactly played a murderer's row of productive quarterbacks or offenses. So I am really curious to see how they match up. I know that, again, Lane gives a lot of props to Venables and the twitchiness of the athletes that they have. And don't get me wrong, I think everybody knows that this Oklahoma's defense is good. Again, it's Brent Venables. He's always going to have a pretty good group. But is it as good as the numbers indicate? I don't know. I don't think we really know that yet, I know Texas put up 23 on them. And that was, and that's a Texas offense that has had its shares of issues as well this season. So, if Texas can do that, what can Ole Miss potentially do, So I do, again, I think that defense is really good, but and Venables said it during his teleconference, like Lane Kiffin always has beaters for everything that you do on defense. He always has an answer. And I thought that was really interesting because let's be honest, there's probably not a better play caller in the country or schemer than Lane and Charlie Weiss right now. I mean, that's about as good as it gets. So I know Venables is really good. And, there's been a lot of talk of Signalgate this week. So I'm sure Ole Miss is going to have some elaborate way to not get, detected in terms of what they're calling. But
that was a shot at Hugh Freeze, right?
Of course. Oh yes, 100%. It's always a shot at Hugh Freeze. Come on, man.
Yeah. Since Jimbo Fisher left the SEC, Hugh Freeze just became the designated whipping boy.
I mean, and he the last few weeks he's earned it. I'm not sure how long we're going to be able to talk about old Hugh as a head coach in the SEC. We'll see. I think we're a few weeks, maybe a week or two away from that coming to an end. But it's always a shot at Hugh when you can take it.
Yeah. Maybe he's like going back to Liberty and he's like, hey, take me back. And
Man.
Yeah. No more Diego Pavia. He has no more eligibility. Just give me a chance, So we'll see exactly how that goes. Anyway, when we come back, we will talk about Lane, Florida Gate, and all of that stuff. We still have 6 weeks of this to get through. But we'll talk to Michael Katz about that and everything that is going on there. So stick around. All right. I do want to let you know it's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more money every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it all down. For Ole Miss, it was Deshaun Stribling. He delivered in a big way. It was a 3rd and long against a little bit soft coverage. Lane Kiffin saw it, picked it out. Ole Miss threw a little stop route out to the outside, one move on the corner, and it was a 75-yard touchdown against basically zero coverage. When the pressure was on, he came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. Deshaun Stribling is on a streak. And just like Deshaun Stribling delivered for the Ole Miss Rebels, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack it all up all season long, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day only with DoorDash term supply. The promo period runs through November 18th. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets that you can use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many different ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, even followed live lines during the games. It makes watching football so much more exciting when you have a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into statistics, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. So we can't let Michael go without having the conversation about Lane Kiffin in Florida.
We could, but we won't.
Yeah, you know, for obvious reasons, honestly, if we're going to be real about it. But Florida at this point, we're at the point of this search that nothing has happened, period. There hasn't been anything drafted, any financial thing that happened, and people claiming to know. They're lying to you. It's a fake news situation. The only thing that we're dealing with right now, Michael, is Florida fans absolutely bombarding every Ole Miss post and trying to affect the narrative and public opinion about Lane Kiffin and the Florida job so that Ole Miss loses to Oklahoma, so Ole Miss loses to Florida or South Carolina. If they can do that, that accomplishes their goal. But anything real that's happening right now, it's just not.
And that's the thing, like nothing, we are not going to go and know anything until like the very, very earliest Thanksgiving, right after Thanksgiving, maybe later, depending on, you know, playoff bids and whatnot. Like there's no resolution in sight right now. The only resolution that hypothetically could be made is if he signs an extension at Ole Miss right now. But I think, as we all know, that's probably going to drag out too, because that's how it's always happened. It usually drags out these sorts of things. There's no answer right now, and I don't know. I think there's a lot of wishful thinking, and there's a lot of you know, obviously he's going to be at the top of every list. That's what happens every year. It's what happens when you're a good coach who's taken a program to places it hadn't been in a while. Yeah, you're going to be on the top of every list. Duh. And yeah, he is, you know, from a you know, Spurrier Jr., with all due respect to actual Spurrier Jr., you know, a Spurrier type guy in terms of, you know, he's sassy. He gets people riled up. He's an offensive wizard. Yeah, it does make a lot of sense there. But, you know, that's not just because it looks good on paper doesn't mean that it's going to happen or that's likely to happen. And I think anybody that claims that they know for sure one way or the other is maybe unless the source is a pen that has signed something, it's hard for me to believe it, because I don't think Lane knows right now for sure, you know?
Yeah, in 2022, just a reminder to all of our Florida brethren that are bombarding this video, Lane was potentially going to go to Auburn, to the point where everybody at Auburn thought he was coming. They were absolutely sure. They were at the point where they were getting online and they were trolling just like Florida fans are doing right now. Until something is signed, until he's committed, he's not, no matter what you think is going to happen. This is the difference between Ole Miss fans and Florida fans right now, in my opinion, Michael. Ole Miss fans have seen the script, and we understand the script. Florida fans are really excited because they think that Lane Kiffin's going to pull a Bobby Petrino and just walk out mid-season, because Florida is such a wonderful job that anybody would leave for, and it's such a huge brand. But the reality is, Michael, the last four coaches got all the resources in the world, and you couldn't win there. They had all the advantages that Lane would have, that they got paid less money than Lane gets and Lane's staff gets. And NIL-wise, Ole Miss has one of the better collectives in the entire country. It's not Texas, but it's not chopped liver either. So I'm trying to figure out, I think all of the Florida fans, to me, they're just living in 2008 world. They do not understand this world where Indiana, Vanderbilt, and Georgia Tech are all in the top 10. They haven't figured that out yet. They're still living like, hey, Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow, hey, we got Lakeland High School right down the road from us. If we can dominate that, we're going to have a good team. And it just doesn't work like that anymore.
Yeah, somebody, I don't remember who it was specifically. I think it was someone on Feinbaum, but mentioned that, you know, Lane Kiffin put together one of the most talented rosters in football last year. Mm-hmm. Like at Ole Miss. That's just the way it can work now. It doesn't have to be at your quote unquote traditional national championship powerhouse, you know, program. So, and also I think, you know, you brought up this, that Ole Miss fans have seen the script. Like we're probably in like, we're in the first act of the play right now, where no one really knows anything. And let's be honest, who knows if Lane's even thinking about it right now? He's trying to get to the playoff, man.
Which he's not.
Yeah.
If he thought one time about Florida this week, I would be surprised.
Yeah,
literally. Yeah, because Lane doesn't believe what everybody's saying. Oh, you can't win a national championship at Ole Miss. That's the one card that goes out there, and you hear all the time. It's like, right now, if Ole Miss beats Oklahoma, they're going to go 11-1. Convince Lane of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the proof, and this is the proof here potentially that you can compete. Last year's team was a national championship quality team, but obviously a few things went wrong. But man, I don't think anyone wanted to see that team if they made the field. That was going to be a pretty dangerous team. So, I think the idea that you can't build a title contending team at Ole Miss is not true, because listen, they had a quality team last year. And this year, listen, they just took Georgia to the wire at Georgia, and this was a quote unquote rebuilding year. I mean, I think the days that only certain schools can win championships, or at least compete for championships, is over.
Yeah, sounds right. What do you got going on at the Daily Journal, man?
Got some preview stuff for the Oklahoma game. Spoke with one of the beat writers at the Tulsa World, kind of trying to gauge, where Oklahoma's offense is at. Handgate, of course, always is going to come up. Venables, hot seat, maybe coming in where it's kind of at now, the temperature of that. Really good stuff. And then just a lot of preview stuff. You brought up 2022 today. Jaden Williams brought up 2022 a couple days ago. So there's a story about that as well. Then they definitely don't want to let that happen again, not just the losing 4 games in a row to end the season that year, but also the distractions midway through the year that really probably didn't help things. There are a lot of analogs, I think, potentially, and I think it's a good opportunity for Ole Miss to show that the program's come a long way since that year.
Yeah, it should be pretty interesting. All right, safe travels heading over to Norman. Avoid all the storms and all of that stuff, and we'll talk to you next week, bud.
Sounds good, man. Talk to you later.
All right, take care. All right, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports information. We are very proud to have the most perspectives in the business, and that's why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, Google Ole Miss podcast and see how much we come up. We're everywhere. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it's absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. And another big moment for Locked On, college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson and former college star Jesse Holley and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.